A frozen river and 3 miles of snow now stood between Ivan and his friends, out along the snowy wastelands near the village of Treshti in Russia. The police had been left on the other side of the river. They hadn't tried to cross. And now all these frozen teenagers made their way into the tree line next to the river, and everyone's still looking to Ivan. What are we going to do? How are we going to get back home? We can't even make a fire. Our matches are soaked. Ivan still had instructions somehow in his head on what to do next. All the way back from when he had sent up that prayer, or what did he call it? A prayer-o. That prayer that had just said, God help, that had brought God's wisdom into his mind. And so just as it had led them across the river, now it told them what to do next. Ivan said, we have to keep moving. If we stop to try to talk about things, we're just going to freeze solid. Look at our feet, our clothes, our shoes are all soaked in water and caked in snow. We'll get so frozen stiff we won't be able to move. And soon after that, we'll slip into hypothermia. That means our body temperature will go too low and we will be dead. Let's go. So he made them all continue walking. They began walking along the edge of the river in the tree line so they couldn't be seen, so that they would lose the police. And as they walked along, they all kept following in single file behind Ivan as he broke trail through the snow amongst the trees. And after a little ways, Ivan began singing again. Another verse of that song that you heard him sing yesterday. Many mighty men are lost, daring not to stand, who for God had been a host by joining Daniel's band. And when they made it back out of the woods again to a narrower part of the river, a river that was still frozen, and a river that they would still need to cross, but at least it wouldn't be as much cold water to cross now, they sang, crossing back into the water as the floating pieces of ice bumped into their legs. Dare to be a Daniel, ooh, dare to stand alone, ooh, dare to make... But you know what Ivan noticed? The water didn't feel as cold as it had the previous time. And on the one hand, that was kind of nice. But on the other hand, Ivan knew that was also a danger sign. Because if now water that was freezing cold was starting to feel warm, it meant that the nerves in his legs couldn't tell him anymore what was warm and what was cold. And Ivan realized that was also going to mean something very important. If they made it back home, they were going to have to be careful about the difference between warm and cold. And you'll see why. Well, they were able to sneak back across the fields, go from one little forest to another, and they made it back without ever running into the police. And as they got to the outskirts of town, Ivan gathered everyone around quickly, and he said, with his chattering teeth, okay, when we get back to our houses, you're going to want to warm up, but don't warm up too fast. You can't tell what the temperature is right now because your nerves aren't working. If you just go and get into hot water, you could burn yourself or you could damage your nerves permanently. Don't just go and sit right next to the fire. You got to warm up carefully. You got to take snow and rub it on yourselves. Now that sounds ridiculous. I would never want to rub snow on myself to warm up, but when you're that cold, the snow would actually help warm their bodies first. And so that is what all of them did. Is they went back to their homes. They found snow next to the barn or behind the back door. They rubbed it on their bodies. They took all their frozen clothes off and rubbed themselves down. Then they went in and gradually warmed up. And none of those teenagers lost a toe or a finger from all that severe cold, even though they very well could have. Well, they didn't go back down to the river, not for at least another few days. They decided, we've had a bit too much of an adventure there, and Ivan realized, Dad probably was right when he told me not to go. So they just stuck with some of the other means that they had. That's all right. There's probably spiders all around us at this very moment. So Ivan said, you know what, guys, we'll meet, but not down by the river. How about we go to some of our other special meeting places? There were meeting places that the believers in town would meet in when they felt it was safe enough to gather together in groups. Now, were you supposed to gather together in groups? No! And if you were gathered together in groups and you were talking about Jesus, could you get in big trouble? Yes! You could even get, what? Arrested and sent to? Sent to the army. So they would not do this often, but they would occasionally meet in somebody's root cellar, maybe in somebody's barn, when the weather was nice and stormy or cloudy and people couldn't see you sneak in there. And they would get together and they would still just enjoy each other's company and talk about Jesus. Now, the secret police were tricky. Secret police would sometimes figure out that there was a meeting taking place somewhere. And if a secret police could make it into a meeting, and then the secret police could hear somebody talking about Jesus, they could say, aha, all of you are here to talk about Jesus. But you know what? the secret police could never quite fool them. Sometimes they'd make it to a meeting. Sometimes the secret police would show up, dressed, not as a secret police, just dressed as another person, with regular clothing on. And they'd come and they'd knock at the door and say, I'm here for the meeting. And the door would open and they would be let in. But when they came inside, somehow the secret police just stood out. They didn't act like all the other people. And you know why? Because all the other people in these meetings, they knew Jesus. They loved Jesus and they loved each other. And they just knew how to do things like, say, hi, how are you today? I've been thinking about you. And hey, come here, I want to give you a hug. If anybody tried to give the secret police a hug when they were undercover, they would go. And it became very obvious that they were probably a secret police. And word would get around, I think that's a secret police over there. And nobody would start preaching about Jesus. Everybody would just talk about the weather, and talk about the farming, and talk about, boy, I really miss having food to eat. And the secret police would get frustrated after a while and they would leave. Well, at one of these meetings that Ivan had with just his friends, meeting in a cellar, Ivan said, you know what, guys, even if we don't end up getting arrested for meeting and talking about Jesus, or telling others about Jesus, giving people Bibles and baptizing people, us teenagers, once we turn 18, we're going to be sent to the army anyhow. The boys will. The boys, when they turn 18, they automatically have to go to the army for 5 years. That's a long time. 5 years in the army automatically. And so Ivan said, you know what, even though we've been doing all we can to avoid getting arrested and sent off to the army early, we should start planning for what we're going to do when we start turning 18. I mean, Ivan said, myself and Dmitri and Sergey, we're 17, and we're all turning 18 just within the next couple of months. When that happens, we're going to be going to the army whether we like it or not. So what should we do to be ready to go? And they started brainstorming, and they said, you know what, Ivan, we should do what Daniel did. And Ivan liked that idea, of course, because Daniel was his favorite hero. Daniel said, yeah, we should be ready to stand firm. We should be ready to show others God. To show others God is awesome. And to have people become interested in God by how we act. Okay, what can we do that'll stand out? They thought to themselves, okay, we could try being, definitely kind. And let's see, what else can we do? Oh, we'll obey orders. Yeah, but should we obey all the orders, though? Well, let's see. We'll obey all the orders that don't break God's rules. But if any of the orders they give us break God's rules, we're not going to keep those. Okay, what orders might they give us? Well, said Dmitri, I know for sure they're going to expect us to do army things on Sabbath. Yeah, that's right. That's true. All right, well, it'll be hard, but we can do it if Daniel did it. We're not gonna do military work on Sabbath. We'll ask them to give us permission to not have to work on Sabbath. We don't know how, but that's what we'll do. What else? Let's see. A lot of people in the military, they smoke and they drink alcohol. Because in the military, they get nicer things than the regular people do in the villages. So a lot of people in the villages, they wish that they could smoke and drink alcohol, but they just can't get it. But in the military, since you can have those things, the people there, the soldiers there, they like to smoke and like to drink a lot. We're not going to do that, are we? No, because that's not good for our bodies. We won't do that. And we won't eat any foods that aren't good for us either. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And what else? Oh, I know, said Sergey. We're not going to carry guns. And everybody looked at him and said, what? How are you not going to carry guns if you're in the army? That's what armies do, is carry guns. And Dmitri said, but you know what? I did hear there have been some soldiers already, Adventist soldiers, who've managed not to carry guns. They would just ask to be a medic instead. That's somebody who helps people who are injured by the other army's guns. And they just help them and they heal them. Yeah. They said, yeah, we could do that. We'll sign up to be medics. All right. And if we're going to be medics, we're going to have to know how to heal people. Let's see. We should start training how to heal people. How can we do that? I know, said Sergey. We can start practicing natural remedies. We don't know anything about real medicine yet. We're not in medical school, but we can learn the things that our parents can teach us about how to take care of a wound, how to take care of a fever, how to take care of a rash. There's lots of ways that Jesus made it so that we can heal people even without having to use medicines. That's great, and that's what they started doing. They spent the next couple of weeks working on this. Even all the other teenagers who were younger, they wanted to learn, and even the girls who weren't going to have to go to the army, they wanted to learn too. And Ivan was glad for that because that meant Vera showed up to the meetings. And Ivan always just felt a little happier when Vera was in the meetings. Until the day that Vera wasn't at the meeting. they were getting together to have one of their training sessions. Vera wasn't there, and Ivan was trying to, focus on what they were talking about, but he just kept getting distracted, watching to see if she was going to come in. And suddenly the door opened. He thought, oh, is it Vera coming in? And it wasn't. It was Sergei who was running late, but Sergei was running late for a reason. He came in huffing and puffing. Ivan, they got her. They got her. What do you mean they got her? Got who? They got Vera. Vera's the secret police. They took her. They took her into the station. They're going to question her. About what? What do you think's going on? I think they're going to ask her questions about that meeting down by the river when we all got away. I think they want to know who else was down there. They think maybe she knows. Uh-oh. That was not good. Not only was it not good because then if the secret police found out who was Vera's friends, they would arrest them, but also because that was Vera, taken by the secret police, and Ivan didn't want her to get hurt. What if they did something mean to her? What if they never let her go? What if? What if? All of these what ifs started going through his mind. He didn't know what he should do. And Sergei said, you know what you should do? You should go down there and you should tell them that she's innocent and they should let her go. And Ivan almost began to run out the door. But thankfully, he remembered to do a prayer roll first. And he sent up a prayer roll before he took that first step. God help! And in that God help was everything he wanted to ask. God, should I go down there? God, is this what you want me to do? Is Vera okay? Can I trust you to keep her okay? Should I go down there and show my face? Or is that just going to be a way of the secret police finding out that I'm her friend? Will they arrest me too? And then more and more people will keep showing up and just getting arrested. Is it a trap, Lord? And he knew the answer in his heart right away. God help! Sergei, I'm not going to go. It's a trap. It's a trap. God's going to take care of Vera. We're just going to wait and pray for her. And that's what they did. They all got together and they prayed for her. And they prayed for her all that day. And the next day. And the next day. Because it wasn't until 3 days later that Vera finally showed up at Ivan's front door of his home. And when he opened the door, Ivan was amazed to see Vera didn't look scared. She didn't look like somebody who had spent the past 3 days worried and wondering what was going to happen. She looked calm. And he said, are you okay? She said, yes, I'm okay. The police wanted to know who my friends were down by the river. And they were holding me to see if anybody would show up. And I thought, if anybody's going to come for me, it would be Ivan. But I'm going to pray that he doesn't. I was praying that you would just stand firm and wait to let God handle it. I'm so glad you did. And Ivan thought to himself, I'm so glad I did too. Otherwise, they never would have let any of us go. Vera, myself, or anyone else who showed up. Ivan also thought to himself, Vera really trusts God. I hope that I can get to know her more. I would love to marry Vera someday if I could. But before that day could ever come, that would have been a long time in the future. There was another day that was coming a lot sooner, which was possibly more important. Because it was Ivan's 18th birthday coming up. His birthday was actually going to be on a Sabbath day that year, December of 1946. And Ivan and his family had planned just a little get-together, just the three of them in the home. Ivan's dad, Vladimir, and his mother, Lena, and Ivan. And as they sat down around the lunch table that afternoon on that Sabbath for his birthday, they joined hands and they prayed that God would continue to bless Ivan as he grew, that he would keep him safe no matter what came. And Ivan thought in his head, God help me to stand firm no matter what. And just as they were about to say amen, there was a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. No, actually, it wasn't a knock on the door. It was a pound on the door. Pound, pound, pound! None of Ivan's friends would have knocked on the door that way. Ivan knew right away this was not somebody coming for a friendly visit. They all looked at each other across the table. Their eyes got big. Lena's eyes, his mother's eyes, filled with tears. The pounding came again. Pound, pound, pound! Open door! Army recruiters! We are here for Ivan! And his mother looked at him and said, don't go! Hide! No, said Ivan as he stood up. No, I've been preparing for this. We knew this was going to happen, Mom. I can't run away. I'm going to stand and I'm going to go where God sends me. It'll be okay. And Ivan went to the door and opened it himself. And there were the two burly men in military uniform looking at him. Scowls on their faces. And one of them poked at his chest and said, you Ivan? Yes, I am. You are 18 today. Train leaves tomorrow for boot camp. Pack one bag.
say your goodbyes and be at train station in the morning, or you're in big trouble.
And we'll see what happens to Ivan tomorrow morning.